Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 14. So here we see the Lord is explaining, and this chapter is entitled The Modes of Material Nature. So today we will try to understand, because today's slok, it talks about one who dies in the mode of goodness. What happens to him? But before that, we will try to understand what is the mode of goodness. We try to understand its nature. Who is the person in the mode of goodness? Who is the representative of the mode of goodness? The position of one in the mode of goodness. So, in the beginning of this chapter, Krishna mentions Sattvam, Rajas, Tama iti, Guna, Prakriti, Sambhava, Nirvadananti Mahabhavo, Dehi, Dehinam, Avyayam. So Krishna is saying that, hey Arjun, my dear Arjun, material nature consists of the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So what are the three modes of material nature? Goodness, passion, and ignorance, which we have already read, I'm sure, when you have started studying the 14th chapter. So these are the three modes of material nature. So when the living entity comes in contact with nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes. The living entity is pure, and it says here in this 14th chapter, text 5, that the living entity comes in contact with the modes of nature and he is conditioned by it. What kind of living entity? Eternal living entity. So the living entities, like we all are Jivatmas, we all living entities are pure. But because we have come in contact with the modes of material nature, we have become conditioned by the different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, further in text 6, the Lord talks about the mode of goodness. He says, O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. So what does the mode of goodness do? The mode of goodness, because it is purer than the others. Which are the others? Which are the others?
Mode of passion and mode of ignorance.
Very good. So it is mode of passion and ignorance, and therefore it's illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reaction. So that is the result of being in the mode of goodness. And once one is in the mode of goodness, what happens? One becomes conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. That is the result of one in the mode of goodness, which Krishna explains in the 6th verse. So the living entities are conditioned by material nature, we know. By one particular mode, one becomes happy, like we read just now, that in the mode of goodness, one becomes happy. When one in another mode, one becomes active, that is in the mode of passion, one is very active. And in the mode of ignorance, one is helpless. So we won't go into mode of passion and ignorance today, but we will try to understand the complete mode of goodness. which is mentioned in this chapter. And also we will go into the 18th chapter also, where the Lord mentions all the different qualities of one in the mode of goodness. So all these types of psychological manifestation are cause of the condition status of the living entity. It is the psychological manifestation, and they are differently conditioned. The person in the mode of goodness is differently conditioned, the person in the mode of passion is differently conditioned, the person in the mode of ignorance is differently conditioned. So now let us understand what is the effect of developing the mode of goodness in this material world. What is the effect? One becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned. So one becomes wiser than those in the mode of passion and ignorance. So once one is in the mode of goodness, one becomes wiser. Now what is the nature of one in goodness? So Krishna says in the 6th verse, and Prabhupada explains in the purport, that the man in the mode of goodness is not so much affected by material miseries. So being in the mode of goodness, one is not affected so much by the modes of material miseries. Why? Because he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge. Now who is the representative of one in the mode of goodness? The representative is the Brahmana, who is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness. And why is there a sense of happiness? There is a sense of happiness due to understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reaction. So one becomes free from sinful reaction when one is in the mode of goodness. Actually, the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and greater sense of happiness. This was explained in text 6. Then in text 11, a description is made of the experience. How does one experience this mode of goodness? The manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. Now, what does it mean by all the gates? Doesn't it appear to be very clear that, oh, where are the gates? I don't know where are the gates. Which are the gates? In text 11, means that I can say, to put it in layman's term, holes. There are holes, right? The two eyes, right? The 2 ears, there's a chain. Then in the nose, there are two nostrils, mouth. These are openings. Actually, these are gate. Gate means opening. It's an opening. So the body has got 9 openings. Okay, the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 nostrils, the mouth, the genitals, and the anus. So these are the 9 gates. When every gate is illuminated by the symptom of goodness, it should be understood that one has developed the mode of goodness. Now all these gates, which we just mentioned, the 9 gates, when they are all illuminated with the mode of good, with the knowledge, that means they are developed the mode of goodness. What does it mean? What does it mean? This illumination means what? What does it mean that every gate of the body is illuminated in the mode of goodness? What does it mean? It means that one can see things in the right perspective. 2 eyes, see things in the right perspective. 2 ears, hear things in the right position. One can taste things in the right position. One becomes cleansed inside and outside. In every gate, there is a development of the symptoms of happiness, and that is the position of the mode of goodness. So it's clear what happens when with the mode of goodness, one becomes completely illuminated, and because of that illumination, one can see things in the right perspective. One can hear things in the right position, one can taste things in the right position, and one is cleansed inside and outside. And every gate, there is a development of a symptom of happiness. That is the position of the mode of goodness. So now, we can understand, first of all, in Bhagavad Gita, here the Lord is covering certain aspects of the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. But today's verse consists of what does the mode of ignorance do? So we will just illuminate on that, because we have to know what is the mode of goodness. What does it contain? What is its nature? How can we attain that mode of goodness? So it is in detail mentioned in the 18th chapter. And in the 18th chapter, the mode of goodness, of course, all three modes are explained in terms of knowledge. What does how does one understand goodness in action, mode of goodness in duty, mode of goodness in understanding, mode of goodness in determination, mode of goodness in happiness, and today's word, mode of goodness in death. So even death is mentioned here, that a person who dies in the mode of goodness, what will be his position? So here it says that when one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains the pure higher planet of the great sages. And that is the translation of this verse. Now let's understand the mode of goodness in knowledge. That knowledge which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand that it is the mode of goodness. Now, how do you recognize mode of goodness? How do you recognize mode of passion? How do you recognize mode of ignorance? Because until we recognize these things, we will not know where we are, where we stand. Because we want to advance in spiritual life, we want to go ahead, we have to understand these things. And therefore, Krishna is trying to make us understand these modes, because we are all being conditioned by the modes. And the modes, there is, like we also have read, that there is a competition. Sometimes mode of goodness is prominent, sometimes passion, sometimes ignorance, and sometimes there's a complete competition between the three modes. And that we see in our lives also. Because when sometimes we feel very enthusiastic for spiritual realization, because what happens, it's illuminated. So one who's in the mode of goodness, he is more prone towards understanding spirituality. He is more prone to understand Adhyatma. He is more prone to understand the messages of transcendence. So therefore, sometimes we get, but sometimes we're in the mode of passion, so we get busy in our work and we get so many, because it's action, and because of that, sometimes we don't feel, because that's when the mode of passion is trying to, take the first position. And then sometimes we just don't feel like doing anything. Like now today is the class. Prabhuji is having the class every time. But sometimes we get all enthusiastic to attend the class. Sometimes, oh, I'm so tired, let it be. So these are the modes of nature which are acting on us, and we are being conditioned by those modes when actually we are not supposed to be. We have to go beyond these modes. We have to rise above them. So we have to always try to be if we want to have real happiness, and if we want to become free from all sinful reactions, at least we should try to be, Prabhupada says, to keep ourselves in the mode of goodness. We should not drag ourselves down to the mode of passion and ignorance, because it's very difficult, and this will go on. So now what is the mode of goodness? So this knowledge, we're seeing all living entities, undivided. When in action, that action which is regulated, and when performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. So this is, what is it? It says, the Lord is saying, 18.23, that action which is regulated, which is performed without attachment, which is without love or hatred. So this means being equipoised, without desire for fruitive results. That is said to be in the mode of goodness, that action. Now it talks about duty and the worker. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature. Now here in this verse, the word amalam is used. Amalam means free from the modes of material nature, free from passion and ignorance. Free from passion and ignorance means amalam. So one who performs his duty without association with the modes of nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. Actually, we can discuss these topics in detail when we come, but I'm just trying to give a gist of what is there in this mode of goodness. Because if we don't know what is there, how will we know what is the mode of goodness? So this is very important. So without wavering in success and failure. So sometimes we have success, we become disturbed. Sometimes, when we have success, we become very happy, and when we have failure, we become disturbed. So this is due to the association of the mode. So one who is in the mode of goodness is free from this. His mind is not wavering in success and failure. Next is understanding. That understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. So that understanding. What understanding? What ought to be done, what ought to. So many times we don't understand what is to be done, what is not to be done. Right? But when we are in the mode of goodness, when we come to the position of mode of goodness, we can understand what is to be done, what ought not to be done, and it happens automatically. You don't have to try for it. You just need to come to that position of the mode of goodness. So when you are in the mode of goodness, all these things take place automatically without even us knowing it. So what is to be feared, what is not to be feared, it's all about coming from within us. Next is determination. So the Lord says, dear part, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness of yoga practice, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life and senses, is determination in the mode of goodness. It's unbreakable. Next is happiness. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end it is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. So that which is like poison, like spiritual life, understanding spiritual life, it's not easy, it's very difficult. It looks like poison because there are so many rules and regulations and niyam, and because of that it appears like poison, just like when we are having a very serious disease and we have to take some medicine. The medicine is like poison. We don't want to take it. It's so bitter, it's so painful. But by taking it, then we can come to the healthy condition. Just like a person, Prabhupada said, who is affected by jaundice, like a person with jaundice, when you give him sugar, it appears like poison. But when he keeps taking it, then he again revives his taste he revives his natural taste for the sweetness of sugarcane juice, and then he relishes it. So it appears in the beginning like that. So spiritual life is like that. Adhyatma Jivan is like that. So therefore, that is the one, anybody who understands this and who awakens which awakens one to self-realization, and this, which appears like poison, later on, what does it do? It awakens one to self-realization. And that happiness is said to be in the happiness in the mode of goodness. So, the representative of the mode of goodness is the Brahmana. But what is the quality of a Brahmana? Brahmana is peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities of a Brahmana. So now, Brahmana is in the mode of goodness. So these are the qualities. So when we imbibe these qualities, and by coming to the mode of goodness, one can be able to experience or have these qualities. Now, how does one come to the mode of goodness? The mode of goodness, for example, we are having this particular program. To come to the mode of goodness, one has to be in the association of saintly people. When one is in the association of saintly people, one is regularly trying to study Bhagavad Gita, just coming in contact with Bhagavad Gita. One slowly comes to the mode, is raised from the mode of ignorance and from passion to goodness, and then to pure goodness, which is Shuddha Sattva. That is the higher than the mode of goodness. So now, even in that, now what happens to a person? Like in this particular chapter, Krishna talks about one who dies in the mode of goodness, one who leaves his body, let's say, not die, but leaves his body in the mode of goodness, who leaves his body in the mode of passion, and who leaves his body in the mode of ignorance. So the destinations are different, they're not the same. So therefore, at least one should come to the position of the mode of goodness, and in many ways, Krishna has explained throughout the Bhagavad Gita what is the mode of goodness. I've only tried to cover a few things, but this is what, by and large, what the mode of goodness is. So Krishna says that when one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains the pure higher planets of the sages. Srila Prabhupada in his purport says that one in goodness attain higher planetary system. Now, which planetary system? Brahmalok or Janalok. And there he enjoys godly happiness. Now you will say, what is Brahmalok? What is Janalok? Now this whole material universe, there are 14 planetary systems. There are 7 planetary systems up and there are 17 planetary systems down. So one can go to any of these planetary systems according to the consciousness. The consciousness at the time of death. That will determine where you go. And that is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhava. Tajate antakalevaram tam tam evati konteya sat tad bhava bhavitaha. Tad bhava bhavita. Whatever is your bhava, whatever is your consciousness. And this is actually known as the law. What is the law that decides where you will go after your death? That is called the law of the last thought. The law of the last thought. Whatever will be your thought at the time of death. So it is a very crucial point. It is actually the final examination of each one of us. That what are we thinking? So whatever is our consciousness. So if our consciousness, like it says here, that is in the mode of goodness, and a person in the mode of goodness has all these qualities, and because he has all these qualities, he is free from sin, and because of that he will go to the higher planetary system. So this is the law, that if one dies in this consciousness, which is mentioned, so many qualities are given here of person in the mode of goodness. So whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his present body, in the next life he will attain that state without fail. Yam yam vapi smaran bhav ante kalevaram. That is what he will get without fail. Now first we have to understand these things, that what are the different, the law of the last thought. Since a person is in mode of goodness, his knowledge, his action, his understanding, his determination is pure. And because of that pure consciousness, where does he go? He goes to the higher planets. Is that clear? So there are different planets. Now here Prabhupada mentioned Janaloka and Satyaloka. So there are 14 planetary systems, 14 up and 14 down. Bhur, Bhuvar, Swar, Mahar, Janas, Tapas, Satya on the higher planetary system. Then Atal, Vital, Surtal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, Patal. Many people know Patal, but there are so many in between also. We say na Patal mein jaya, Narak mein jayega, Patal. But Patal we know, but there are so many lower planetary systems, there are so many higher planetary systems. And why will they go to the planet of the higher planets? Why will they go there? What does this shloka say? It says that when one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in futile. Sorry, this is passion. Sorry. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains the pure higher planetary of the great sages. Now these sages, where do they live? They live in Janaloka. So they will go there, they will enjoy godly happiness. Therefore, the word Amalam is significant. It means free from the mode of passion and ignorance. So there are impurities in this world, but the mode of goodness, even though actually the mode of goodness also is material, because it is a mode. Mode means guna. Guna means rope. It is binding. One is conditioned, one is bound by the mode of material nature, whether it is goodness, whether it is ignorance or happiness. But still, the mode of goodness is better than the others, and it can take you to the higher planets. And these impurities, even though there are impurities in the material world, but the mode of goodness is the purest form of existence in the material world. There are different kinds of planets for different kinds of living entity. There are different strokes for different folks. So that's what they say in English. So different strokes are there, different places where we can go. Those who die in the mode of goodness are elevated to the planet where the great sages and great devotees live. That is what is being described here in this section of our Vatika. So I'd like to end here because I think it's time, and I would once again like to thank Gopal Prabhu for the